All right. Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everybody, wherever you happen to be in the world here. My name is Emily Tobin, and I'm Director of Marketing for Zondervan Bibles, and I'm also the marketing lead for the Thompson Chain-Reference Bibles. So welcome to our first webinar, my first webinar ever. I'm very excited. I'm going to be joined today by Randy Brown here, who is a longtime TCR user and definite expert on the subject. He's going to give you an overview on how to use the Thompson Chain-Reference Bible, and we'll answer any questions that you guys have. So just a little bit of background. Zondervan acquired the publishing rights to the TCR in December of 2020. And last year we published new editions using the existing text blocks from Kirkbride, who was the original publisher. And those are currently available in the KJV, NKJV, the NASB, and the ESV. And then starting this year, we're publishing updated and revised editions, which started with the NIV, which went on sale back in June, still June. And then, so these new editions have been set in our comfort print typefaces. They kind of have a fresh page design, and all the chains have been checked to ensure that they are correct and complete. So those are our new revised editions. That's what Randy's going to be looking at tonight. So Randy's going to use this new NIV text in his examples, and he's going to walk us through how the chain reference system works and some of the other features that are found in the Bibles. After that, we're going to take some questions, and then Randy's going to come back and talk about some ways to use the TCR more for sermon prep and teaching, that sort of thing. And then after that, we'll take some more questions. So if you have questions at any point, go ahead and put it in the little Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen there, and we'll answer as many as we can. We already have one question that I'll just go ahead and answer right now, which is, do we have an ETA on a large print ESV? So the short answer is no. We have not announced any ESV editions yet, so stay tuned. But I can tell you that every release going forward will have large print editions included. So every translation that comes out will have a large print. We have not announced the ESV yet. So quick answer there. And so now I'm going to go ahead and mute myself, turn myself off, and pass it over to Randy.
Thanks, Emily. I appreciate it. And that's my answer too for when a Thompson is going to be released. I'll always answer that they haven't announced the release date yet, even if I know the answer to that question, because I'm not allowed to say that. But in this case, we don't know, and but it is definitely one that I'm looking forward to. Well, first of all, my name is Randy Brown, and I run BibleBuyingGuide.com. That is my hobby business. As for a living, I'm a content creator. So I write articles on all types of topics. And one of the topics that I've written about a lot recently is the Thompson Chain-Reference. And for that reason, I'm here today going through how to use the Thompson Chain-Reference. So the Thompson, it is a reference Bible, and it is a study Bible. So but it has a lot of differences between both. Rather than having typical, your common everyday cross references, and rather than having commentary on the text, it lists topics. And then those are just topics that you can follow in the text itself. So we're going to look at those topics. We're going to look at how that chain reference system works, how the margins of the Thompson works. We're going to look at all the other tools in the Thompson. It has an alphabetical index, it has a numerical index, and then it has lots of other tools in the back. So we're going to take a look at all those tonight. Just a quick walk through. So I'm going to share my screen, and I will show you what we're looking at here. We're looking at the text of Luke, and where a normal, common, everyday cross-reference Bible would have an A and a B and a C and all these links to cross references in the text. The Thompson's actually clean. It has a clean text that's easy to read. Now, it looks complex. When you first open up the Thompson, it looks complex, but it's not as complex as it looks. It's not as bad as AutoCAD or something like that. If you've ever opened up Photoshop or AutoCAD and it's like, oh, no, just close it back. It does look complex, but it's not like that. It's really simple. If you just look at the text itself, we just have a clean text, no colors in the text to the references. But now in the margins, rather than having an A or a B or a C that will give you cross references in all directions, it has the name of the topic. And these are the, excuse me, these are the topics that are in the text itself. Not necessarily the name of the topic in the text, but the topic itself. It goes by themes rather than words, rather than just linking all words that are not really connected. It links the themes themselves. So the word doesn't have to be in the text. Also, just because it has the word in the text doesn't mean that it's going to be in the chain reference. It's based on themes. So just look at what we have here in the margins. Going through, we've got if you can see my mouse here, we've got a section heading. Now, the NIV text already has a section heading. We see that up here, the birth of Jesus. We see down here, Jesus presented in the temple. But the Thompson has its own section headings, and you can use them together. This is great for study. Under this, we have parallel passages. And then under this, we have the chain reference system. This is the primary tool of the Thompson. For example, we have Joseph, and then we have a 2. That 2 means that Joseph is a subtopic. This is subtopic number 2. And then we'll see that as we go. And then we see a number in red, number 1918. And then we see 241. 1918 is the topic number. Joseph is the topic name. And then 241 is the next topic in the chain. And that's mostly what we're going to see in the topics, in the margins, all the way through. Now, you'll see this one says 216, has the number 216, but it doesn't tell you what book you're going to. The reason is because we're staying in the book we're in. This one down here, for example, incarnation, it shows John 1:14. We're going outside of this book to another book. And then we'll also see some symbols. Here's a square. There's a square. Here's a square. Those mean that verse is the end of the chain reference. Now, we also have some that don't have a chain reference, like this one, fullness of time, and it gives us 1343, but doesn't give us the next reference in the chain, and it doesn't tell us that it's the end of the chain. The reason for this is this one is in the chain itself in the back, in the numerical index, which we'll see in a minute, but it's not a prominent verse, so it's not in the chain system, but it's still marked in the margins. Here's another parallel passage. Also in the back, we have, now this is after the biblical text in the back, about maybe a fourth of the Bible, fourth to a third, depends on the translation. This one has all the study tools, and it includes the alphabetical index of topics. That is the main index where you're going to look up topics. Then we have numerical index of topics. This is the largest index. This takes up the bulk of the back matter. And then we have Bible character studies, one of my favorite tools, Bible harmonies and illustrated studies. And these are lots of charts, lots of maps, lots of tables, timelines, and then Hebrews, times, seasons, and festivals, and then our concordance and color maps. We'll see examples of these. This is the alphabetical index, and it works just like a dictionary or an encyclopedia. If you want to look up a theme, want to look up a topic, you just look it up alphabetically. It gives you the topic name, and then it gives you a number in red. Now, that's not a page number. That's the topic number. We're going to look that up in the numerical index. Some of them have more than one. For example, Aaron has 1. Abasement has 1170 through 1171, so it has 2. These are all topics under that title. Some have subtopics, like this one here, ability. We have divine. Then we have giving according to. Activity, we have evil, religious, spiritual exhortations concerning. with lots of topics within them. Altars, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Each one of these is a subtopic that's numbered. And we'll see these in the numerical index. So when we go to the numerical index, and they're all in numerical order. So it's just looking up the number. Just like looking up a page number, except you're looking at the columns and you're looking at the entries. This is entry 16, topic number 16. The topic name is Absalom. It gives you the topic number, the topic name, and then a short description. And then some of these are broken out into subtopics. And like this one here, we have general references. We see a lot of other things going on here too. We see, if I can zoom in just a little, we see lots of verse references that are printed in red and lots that are printed in black. Those that are in red are the prominent verses. These appear in the margin and include the chain, the reference to the next link in the chain. Then we have those that are in black. They also appear in the margin, but they're not part of the chain reference. Those that are the most prominent, a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times are printed in the back in full so that we can read them just as they are. Of course, we want to go to the margin and read them in context, but this tells you what the verse is so that you can know if it's what you're looking for or not. Now, this one, you'll notice it has an M, plenty promised. The topic name is plenty, but the M means in the margin says plenty promised. The reason for this is that the margins give you the topic name according to that translation. It uses the actual words from the translation itself. So that might be different from one translation to the other, but the topic name in the back is still going to be the same. The topic number is still going to be the same. Then also we'll have some that give us more information. For example, this one, abundant supplies, abundant entrance, abundant power. What this is a short description of that text. And sometimes it's one verse, sometimes it's a dozen verses. And so that helps you understand if that's what you're looking for or not. Gives you an idea of what this passage is about. A little bit of context, which is helpful considering that we're seeing the verses out of their context. And then at the end of the list, we'll see divine supplies, fruitful land with topic numbers. What this is suggested topics. So that when we're done looking up all these references, if we want more information, one place we can look is what they suggest for us to look at, suggested topics. So here is the condensed outline of the Bible, just some examples of some of the information in the back, some of the kinds of tools that's back there. And like I said, we have outlines, we have timelines, we have maps, charts, illustrations. So this one is a condensed outline of the Bible. It breaks the biblical books into their sections, Pentateuch, historical books, poetic books, and then gives a short description of each. Just one example of the kind of tables that are back there. Here's another table, periods of biblical history. Just a quick example of the kinds of tables that you'll find back there. Bible character studies. This is one of my favorite tools. What it does is gives you a detailed biography of the prominent biblical characters. Now, it doesn't have every character in the Bible, but those that are the most prominent, you'll find them back here. And here's one of the examples of the new illustrations in the updated version of the Thompson. Here's one of the maps. Now, the original maps took a lot larger space on the page, and they had all this text on the map itself, making all of it a little bit difficult to follow and use. So what Zondervan has done is remove all of the content off of the map and printed it separately. And then we have the map itself printed on the side so that it's all easier to use. But there are lots of maps throughout the back, and they follow journeys, all types of land locations, lots of maps for study. Here's a timeline. This is the overview of Jesus' life, the life of Christ. Just an example of one of the timelines. Topical treasury. This is another of my favorite tools. This is a list of topics. It's basically what it is. But what it does is it lists the topics under certain things that you can use for study. It's study suggestions. And there are several other types of study suggestions in the Thompson, but this one includes like prayer and devotional meetings. And here's some suggested topics. Now, these are not articles or anything like that. These topics are what you would look for in the numerical index, just like we saw a minute ago. And it gives you the topic name and it gives you the topic number. So you would just look up the topic number and there's the topic you're looking for. Here's another example of tools in the back: places of religious worship and religious leaders, just some information. Hebrew times, seasons, and festivals, another table. And there's several tables along this line back there. Now, what used to be in the back, you used to be able to find an analysis of books. That has been moved and created a book introduction. So the book introductions are now in front of the books where they're the most useful. A lot of times, Thompson readers wouldn't realize that they could actually find a book introduction, but now right there it is, right there, easy to use. And this includes information on the author, the date written if it's known, the purpose of the book, to whom it was written, the main theme of the book, the key words in the book, the key verse in the book, a synopsis. Now, the synopsis is very similar to an outline, but it breaks down into a little bit more detail. It's an analysis of the book. Prominent people in the book, and then major themes in the book. Some of these are new, especially this one. The major themes, it gives you the topics and it gives you the topic number. And if you want to know what are the main themes in a book, there it is. That's the list. What is this book about? What are the primary points, the primary themes of this book? You'll find them right there. So all these are great for sermon prep. They're all great for research. They're all great for personal study. So all of these are really good tools, and they're scripture based. So what they're doing is they're giving you a list of scriptures so that the scriptures can interpret themselves. They're not giving you articles to read to find what someone else believes or something like that. They're all scripture based. So let's look at an example of how these tools work. First, we're going to start with a chain reference example. And for this example, if you have your Thompson, you can turn with me. We go to Psalm 23:1. Psalm 23:1. And in the margin, we're going to find the topics in this verse. And it's going to give us the topic number, the topic name. It's going to give us the next verse in the chain. And some of these, for example, this one has a little triangle. That shows us it's the beginning of the topic. Topic starts with this verse. And we have Christ Shepherd with a 1. So that shows us it's a subtopic. And this is the first subtopic. Then we see 3264. That's the topic number. That's not going to change. That's going to stay the same. What is going to change is the next reference in the chain, 23:2. So let's look at God's sheep. That's the first verse in the chain. Topic number 3266. And the next verse is 74:1. So now we see other things in the list here. We have several other topics. We have parallel passages, lots of parallel passages, lots of other things that we can use in research and look through. So let's see how to use this by looking at the numerical index and by looking at the chain reference through the margins. So we'll start with the numerical index. We would go to topic number 3266. So if you're coming across a topic that you're interested in and you want to know more about that, what other verses are under this topic, look at that topic number. That's not going to change. So we go to 3266 in the numerical index. It shows us the topic number. It shows us the topic name. And then we see a 3. So that shows us that this is the third subtopic under this topic. And then it gives us God's sheep. Then it gives us lots of verses, some printed in black, some printed in red. And then it gives us some suggested topics, God's flock, God's people. Now notice Psalm 23:1 was where we were, and it had the triangle. But the first verse they give you is Numbers 27:17. What's going on here is that Psalms 23:1 is the first prominent verse. These are the ones that are in the chain reference system. So if we turn to Numbers 27:17, we would find God's sheep. We would find this in the margin, but we wouldn't find the reference to the next verse because these are not the prominent references. The red ones are the prominent references. Now, if we look around, we also notice that we have Christ Shepherd. Below this, we have Christ Shepherd. Above it, we have Christ Shepherd. And then over here, we have Christ Shepherd. 3264, Christ Shepherd. In the margin, it says Christ Shepherd, 1, showing it's the first subtopic under Christ Shepherd. And this one is general references to, and it gives us our references, some in black, some in red. And then it gives the most prominent printed in full with a description so that we can know if it's what we're looking for or not. And then the next one is Christ Shepherd. In the margin, it says Christ Shepherd 2. It's the second verse in the second subtopic under the topic. And then we have as guardian of the flock, and then references. And then when we were looking at 3266 is 3, God's sheep. And then 4, Christ Shepherd, sinners regarded as lost sheep. Now, a couple of ways this can be used. When we're studying Christ Shepherd, God's sheep, and we want to look at all these verses, if we want more information, there's a few things we can do. First, we can look at the suggested topics, God's flock and God's people. But we can also notice that we can look at the surrounding topics because this is a subtopic. So we can look at all these other references as well and bring them all together to help in our study. Also notice that we have general references to as guardian of the flock, God's sheep, sinners regarded as lost sheep. This builds an outline of this overall topic. So we have an outline, and then we have the topics that are broken down into the subtopics that we can follow. It's very helpful for study, very helpful for sermon prep as well. So let's go back to Psalm 23:1 and look at God's sheep, 3266. It gives us the reference to 74:1. So if we wanted to follow this instead of in the back, if we wanted to follow it in the margins, we would just simply go to the next verse, 74:1. And then 74:1 gives us God's sheep, 3266, and then 79:13. And then, of course, we have other topics that are surrounding it, God's anger, believers' names. But notice, God's sheep doesn't change. It's the same topic. 3266, the same topic number. It doesn't change. What is changing is the next reference in the chain. In this case, 79:13. So that tells us to go to Psalm 79:13. And then for 79:13, we have several topics: God's people, God's sheep, thankfulness, testimony, praise. And then we can look all of these up to help us exposit the text, to help us dig deeper into that passage or that verse. So God's sheep, 3266, this doesn't change. It gives us the next verse in the chain, Matthew 10:16. So we can follow this all the way until the end of the chain. So let's go to the end of the chain. At the end, we have John 10:3, God's sheep, 3266, and then it has a little square. And that square tells us that this is the last verse in the chain. Now you notice above it, we have Christ Shepherd, 3264, and this one doesn't give us a square, and it doesn't give us a reference. The reason for this is one of those that is not a prominent verse. So it's not in the chain reference system in the margins, but it is still labeled in the topic. So if you find this verse and you want to study more about this topic, go to 3264 in the numerical index, and you're going to find all the references for that topic. So that is the end of a chain. So now let's reverse the process. Let's see how to go the other direction. What we did a minute ago was we found a topic by reading a verse. We saw a topic we wanted to study. We traced the topic through the chain reference system in the margins, and we traced the topic through the numerical index in the back. But what if we want to look up a topic and find verses under that topic? For that, we would go to the alphabetical index, and we would just look up the topic we want to in alphabetical order. So for this example, we're going to look at grace. So we go to grace in the alphabetical index. It's technically the alphabetical index of topics, but I always shorten it and just call it alphabetical index. Same for the numerical index. Emily's probably going to get me for that, but it's the alphabetical index of topics technically. But we have grace, and then under grace, we have 4 subtopics. We have Christ, divine, enabling, and God's. And then each of these gives us the topic number, not the page number, the topic number, 1446, 1445 through 1449. So divine has lots of subtopics itself. So let's look at the first one, Christ, topic number 1446. So all we would do if we found a topic we wanted to study, we would look it up in the alphabetical index and then just go to the numerical index to see all the verses for that topic. So going to 1446, we would find, let's see, go back this way. Going to 1446, we would find grace divine. And then in the margin, it shows Christ's grace, and then of Christ. Then it gives us all of our references with the most prominent in red, and then also the most prominent printed in full. And then it gives us a description of a few of the passages so that we can know if it's what we're looking for. At the end of the list, we have suggested topics that we can study further. And of course, we see surrounding it, we have more. We have grace divine, and then we have others that we can look at. So that's the basics of the tools and how they work. So are there any questions about any of this so far?
I know we have one question in our Q&A so far, but it's for me. So okay. If anybody has questions on what Randy's been talking about. Randy, I know one question that you and I were talking about earlier was why it sometimes seems that verses are left out of chains.
Yeah, and I've seen this a lot too. The basics of the way the Thompson works. Dr. Thompson wanted to be influence-free, and he didn't want to put his interpretation into the chains. So the goal was not to look at the words in the verses, and not to include it just because it has the word, or not to exclude it because it doesn't have a word. But the goal was to include things that were clear on the theme itself without having to input interpretation on that text. So typically, if something is missing that some might feel should be there, it could be that it's an interpretation, and that Dr. Thompson was trying to just remove that interpretation. And I do see another question there, a couple more that I could actually answer, but now I've lost it. I don't know where it's at. I'll let you read them. All
right. We have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one is there a Logos version of the TCR? And the answer is
yes, there is. Yes, but it is the old version. So this is the old Kirkbride version from the 90s. It's actually a printing from the New King James from the 90s. I've actually reviewed that on Bible Buying Guide, and I like it. It works really well, but it's not been updated like the Zondervans have. And another question I saw is, has the Zondervan version been updated? And yes, it has. What Zondervan has done, I'll speak for Emily for a second. What Zondervan has done is what we used to have in the margins didn't always appear in the back. And then what we had in the back didn't always appear in the margins. So like the numerical index, it would show not in margin. And that's particularly noticeable in the King James. That's what I had used the most. So I've seen that a lot. Now what Zondervan has done is everything that was in the margins is now in the back, and everything that was in the back is now in the margins. So they're connected. So that's how Zondervan has updated those. Other updates include graphical updates, new illustrations. The archaeological supplement was removed. A lot of people have voted to have it removed because they don't use it as much. So that was the number one tool that wasn't used. The problem with the archaeological supplement, it hasn't been updated in, I think, 40 years or something along that line. Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit out of date. It was going to take a couple of more years to update. It's going to be very expensive, and a lot of users didn't use it anyway. So instead of, and Emily can correct me if I'm wrong here, but instead of going through that work and process of including the archaeological supplement that wasn't really used, they decided to remove that to improve all the other tools that are back there with larger fonts in some instances, and then give us a larger print in the text itself, which I personally appreciate, because one of the reasons, if I can say this for a second, one of the reasons I started Bible Buying Guide in the first place is because I was using the older Thompson. The text was small, and I wanted a larger print Bible. I wanted darker fonts. I wanted larger print. I wanted better paper. So I set out trying to find that Bible, and I found a few, but I wasn't satisfied with the answers that I saw people answering questions and things like that. It was things like, I bought this Bible for my son, and he loves it. That doesn't help me. So I bought a Bible and I reviewed it. And then while I'm reviewing these Bibles and going through all this review process, I keep talking about how I want larger fonts and I want darker fonts and I want better paper. Well, here, Zondervan has now acquired the Thompson Chain-Reference, and they've given us larger fonts, and they've given us darker fonts, and they've given us better paper. So thanks. I appreciate that very much. That's something but now by doing this, by removing the archaeological supplement, now instead of having an 8-point font for the regular edition, they have a 9-point, 9.5 or 9, something like that. Mm-hmm. It's the same size font as the original large print, but it's darker than the original large print. So it's still easier to use, easier to read. The large print is larger, even larger than that, and another point larger. So I think it's 10.5, if I remember correctly.
Yep. So
those are the kinds of updates that Zondervan has done. And Emily, please add to that if there's anything else that I've left out.
Yeah, I'll also jump in and say that the work that has been done to make sure all the chains are correct and complete and all together is continuing on with each translation. So those will be tweaked a little bit so that all of the words and the phrasing matches each translation. And so that is work that our editors are still doing. I'm just going to scroll through.
I've already noticed some of those updates and seen some of those in there.
Okay.
Just from using it.
Nice. Someone asked if this is available on Accordance Bible software. I don't think so. Do you know, Randy?
I don't think so. It is available on Olive Tree.
It is on Olive Tree, and it is also now brand new on Bible Gateways, Bible Gateway Plus, which is their subscription level. The chains are all included in there, so you can use that in conjunction with the NIV.
And that is the updated version.
It is, yep.
Not like the older Logos version.
Yes, Bible Gateway is the new updated version.
Is Olive Tree the updated?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Olive Tree is also updated.
Okay.
So I'm going to knock off a couple of quick questions here, okay, Randy, and then we've got a couple more involved ones for you.
Okay.
So first is, will there be a Premier Collection edition for each subsequent edition? Yes. Every translation will have a Premier Collection. So the lineup right now for each translation will be, every translation will have handy size in leather soft and bonded leather, regular size in hardcover, bonded leather, leather soft, genuine leather, and the Premier Collection, which is the goatskin cover with all the fancy bells and whistles, and then large print in bonded leather, leather soft, and genuine leather. So that is the lineup for each translation. So every translation will have all the sizes, all the fancy bindings. And then once we've kind of worked through all the translations, I imagine there will be additional editions that come out after that. Jen says she logged in 10 minutes late. Did you explain what the diamond symbol means? And that.
I have not explained a diamond. There are a few symbols in there that I'll go back over real quick though. We have, let me share my screen just for a second. Yeah. And I will show you what it is I'm referring to. We'll see if it's what you're referring to as well. If you're referring to this diamond here, this is just highlighting the topic numbers in the topical, in the numerical index to make them easy to find. But there are a few other symbols that I will show. Let's see here. Here's a square, and that shows this is the end of this chain. And then we have a triangle like this one, and this shows it's the beginning of the chain. So the triangle is where the chain starts. but not necessarily the first verse in the numerical index that we can find under the topic. It's just the first one in the chain reference system, because they're not all in the chain reference system. So we have the diamond to show, or the triangle to show the start of the chain. We have the square to show the end of the chain. And then these diamonds back here just help highlight the topic number so they're easy to find. And what I was talking about not all in the margins, here's an example of that. This one gives us Luke 2:40, John 1:17, and then Acts 18:27. John 1:17 is going to link us to 2 Corinthians 8:9. Acts 18:27 won't link anywhere, but it's in the margin that it's under this topic. So the most prominent topics, the most prominent references are in the chains. So they won't all have the symbol.
Susan is asking, she says, I have a NKJV printed by Zondervan in 2021. Are they releasing a newer version, and will this have all the updates? Yes and yes. So we just announced the NKJV new editions will go on sale in May of 2023. They are being worked on right now. So yes, there will be new NKJVs. It will have the same lineup as the NIV as far as sizes and bindings. It will have all of the updates, the comfort prints, all that good stuff. So the editions that were released in 2021 use the original print files from Kirkbride. So the content of the 2021 editions is identical to the last editions printed by Kirkbride, who was the previous publisher. And then all of the new editions going forward will have all of the updates that we were just talking about.
Did I answer the question of the diamond? Was that it?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Jen, if not, let us know.
Yeah.
All right. I am going to scroll back through the comments here and get caught up on questions. So one for you, Randy.
Okay.
Keen says, do the chains start with the most prominent verse and end with the least prominent, or do they begin with the first time that particular topic is seen in the word and end with the latest the topic is seen?
It gives you the most prominent, regardless of whether or not it's the first. Just because it's the first doesn't mean that it's going to be in the listing of the most prominent. And the only ones that are linked in the chain reference are the most prominent. So you might have some before it, some between it, and some after that are not in the chain reference, but they're all listed in the numerical index. So you'll still have access to them. And then also in the margins, it'll tell you the topic name and the topic number so that you can go back there and find it if it doesn't have the reference.
Perfect. All right, Daryl asks, is Zondervan the only licensed publisher of a TCR? Yes. We acquired the publishing rights from Kirkbride at the very end of 2020. So we will be the sole publisher going forward.
Now, is that just in print, or is that software also? Because Logos does have it in software.
That is a great question that I do not know the answer to.
For backstory there, Logos did acquire word search software, which had licensed to Thompson. So when Logos acquired word search, it acquired all the assets, which included the Thompson.
Okay.
I have no idea about the licensing on that.
I am not sure. I believe that may be a conversation that's happening right now.
Okay. It's outside of us, though.
But
Yeah.
outside of my realm. Yeah. But yes. All right, Jeff says, I'm still using an old chain reference system that Thomas Nelson used to produce back in the 80s. It only has 107 main topics with color coding attached to each of the verses pertaining to that topic. This system seems much more thorough and somewhat exhaustive, deciding if I should finally transition over to the TCR Bible.
Okay, the Thompson has been printed in several different versions over time, and it's been reprinted in older versions at the same time. So the short answer is I would recommend updating. Another example of a different type was the student Bible, which was a stripped down version. And I love the Bible, but it is a stripped down version, which doesn't include all the topics. And it's just a more streamlined and just simpler reference. But yeah, I would upgrade it. There's enough in there. It's definitely worth it.
Randy will never tell you not to go with the Thompson, I think.
I'll never not tell you buy a new Bible either. So
very true.
But, there's a reason. There's a reason I run Bible buying.
So Daryl is also asking which translations are current and which are currently being sold since Zondervan acquired the TCR. So the two prongs to that answer. Like I said, last year we published editions that used the exact same content from Kirkbride. A lot of those were out of print or unavailable. So we did new editions to get those back out. It's the exact same content it was before. And those are available in the KJV, the NKJV, the NASB's 1977 text, and the ESV. So those are all still on sale right now. And then of the new editions that have been updated and redesigned and what we've seen today with Randy's examples, currently only available in the NIV. That went on sale just a couple of weeks ago. That is the first new edition. The KJV will be coming this November, November 1st. And then the NKJV in May of 2023. So those are the NIV is current, and then KJV and NKJV are the two that we've announced so far. We do have other translations in the works, in the plans. We have not publicly announced anything yet. So I would just say stay tuned for those announcements.
Can you talk about the 77 NESB?
Yes, so any updates to the NASB will be either in the 1995 or the 2020 text. However, we will be leaving the 1977 text edition in print, basically as long as people are interested in still picking that one up. The other editions, as the new KJV comes out, the old KJVs will phase out and go out of print. But that NASB will stay in print for a little bit.
And it'll be the current edition as it is.
Yes. We will not be doing an updated version of the 1977 text, but the current edition will stay in print.
Nice.
Mark wants to know, is there a PDF version for the Remarkable Reader? I'm sorry, I don't know what a Remarkable Reader is, but there is an ebook edition if that's what you're looking for. And there will be an ebook edition for every translation.
I need to get that, actually. I need to review that.
Oh yeah, on sale now.
I will review that.
All right. Has the map section been updated with the chain reference system? Yes, that has been updated so that it is included in the index. And then I know that the map section is one that they've been working on to make sure that that's correct for each translation as well. Randy, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you've covered that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
A couple of people joined late. They want to know if recording will be available. Yes, we are recording. I'm hoping to send that out tomorrow via email. Another question for Randy. Comment on the TCR versus Nave's Topical Bible versus traditional concordance versus marked reference Bible.
Okay. What was the last one?
Marked reference Bible.
Marked reference Bible. Okay. I'm not as familiar with the marked reference Bible. With a concordance, you're going to look up the word and you're going to find all the references for that word, or as many as the concordance will include. If you have something like a Crudens, then you're going to have all of them except for one. There's one reference that's missing, my wife found. But you're going to have a list of the most prominent And then the larger the concordance, the more it's going to include it and go. That's where you are going to go from most prominent to least prominent. But they're based on the word itself, regardless of what topic the word is in. So, and how it's used or anything like that. It's just a list of words. But in comparing with the Naves and the Thompson, then first of all, I'm going to need to go back and compare myself, because it's been a while since I've looked at the Naves. I do have one, but it's an older edition, and I'm not sure about current. But for what I can remember, the Naves doesn't include the biblical text in biblical order, if I'm remembering correctly. I think it gives you the topics and lists all the things. So it's more similar to the numerical index, or more similar to the alphabetical index, kind of maybe a cross between the two, if I'm understanding correctly. But I will go get a Naves and compare that. And maybe we can, maybe I can post that in the TCR group, or maybe I do that on Bible Buying Guide or something like that. But I'll do a comparison there to get you a good answer to that. But my feeling is that the Naves doesn't include the biblical text, but possibly includes more references. But I don't know about the quality, if that's the right word, about the content or the context. I'll just need to compare and see.
All right.
And I did see someone said correct on Naves. Thank you.
Yes. Susan is asking, in the new updated versions, are there additions and changes or corrections to the original link scriptures? They have been gone through to make sure that all of the chains are correct and complete. So I know that previously there were some differences from translation to translation of the chains. And so I think that those have all been updated and double checked for accuracy.
Yeah, originally, going from KJV on up to ESV, the ESV made improvements on the New King James, which made improvements on the NIV, which made improvements in all the way back. But those improvements weren't reflected back to the older editions. And so now they've all been going forward, not now because it's still the older in print, but going forward, they'll all be consistent.
Robert says, you mentioned Bible Gateway. Is this a TCR electronically or paid upgrade? So it's Bible Gateway Plus, which is their subscription service. And with that, you can use the translation. I believe it's only available on the NIV right now, but you can use the NIV translation and then add the TCR, the references. So you can use the chain references with the NIV as part of Bible Gateway Plus. And yes, that is their paid subscription. So that's only available if you are a member of that. Someone's asking, does each translation have the same amount of chain references? I think that kind of goes along with what you just said, Randy, that previously it was, they kept adding as they kept publishing. So yes, those have all been completed so that every translation going forward will have the full set of references. And then I've got one last question we're going to take, and then we're going to let Randy do his remaining presentation, and then we'll come back and answer a few more questions if you have them. And I don't know, I'm going to put you on the spot here, Randy, see if you know the answer to this. He says it's a nerd question.
All right.
Curious if you know any other holy texts, such as the Quran, Buddhist sutras, etc., that might possibly use systems like this.
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know the answer to that, but I'll find out.
Randy will find out.
I will find out.
All right.
That's a good question. I like that.
If you're not already in the Thompson Chain Facebook group, join.
Yes.
And get Randy's answer to that question. All right. So I'm going to disappear here again, Randy, and you can take over again, and then I will come back and see if we have some more questions. Oh, I will say someone just asked, how do you join the Thompson Chain group? Just search for Thompson Chain-Reference Bible.
Mm. Yeah, it's called TCR-Thompson Chain-Reference.
There you go. Search for that on Facebook and find the group and click join. And if you're in the Facebook group, you will hear from me now and again with updates on new editions. And I'm always around to answer questions there. Both Randy and I are always in there to answer questions. So feel free to bug us anytime. All right.
All right, so she's giving it back to me. I will share my screen again and show you some more photos. If I can get my computer to work. All right, so let's look at a sermon example. The Thompson is really good for sermon prep. Now, we think of sermon prep with the Thompson as a topical sermon, but it also works well for expository sermon because there's a lot of information in there that help us exposit the text. So let's see that as we go. We were already talking about looking at grace divine. So let's just consider an example of grace divine as a topical sermon. We could look up any of these verses that we want to look up. We could read the verses here, but of course we want to see them in their bigger context. We don't want to just look up just these verses here. But what this will help us do though, is to know if these are the references that we want to use. So for example, let's look at God's grace. And we would turn to our first verse, which was Luke 2:40. I hit the button correctly here. If we go to Luke 2:40, we want to keep it in context. So we're going to look at above it and below it. So we want to have a bigger picture of the context of this verse. So even if we just go back to the previous paragraph, just for our example, of course, we're going to go further than that. We're going to go, further than that in both directions. But just for this example, if we go to the beginning of the paragraph, we would go to verse 39. And then looking at all the topics that are surrounding it, we have obedience, keep the law, Galilee, Nazareth, family Bible readings. That's one of those readings that I was telling you about that gives us a list of suggestions. I highly recommend using family Bible readings. Topic 1672. Christ's humility, spiritual growth, Christ's wisdom, God's grace, and Christ's grace. So now what we can do, get you a notebook, get you a sermon notebook or a journal, and make note of these topics that you want to include in your discussion, in your teaching, or in your personal study, or in sermon prep. It all really works the same way. But of course, with sermon prep and with teaching, we're working on a presentation. So we can look at all of these verses. We can write down the topic names. We can write down the references that we want to use, and we can trace through them. But instead of just looking at God's grace or just looking at Christ's grace, we can go back and look at all of these and see if we want to include them in our preaching or teaching or however we want to use it. So let's look at the next one. It gives us John 1:17, the next one in the chain, John 1:17. We would turn to that one and we see, if we go to the beginning of the paragraph, we see it starts at verse 15. Now here we have a subject heading with verses printed in red with the subject heading. So what this means, this is a harmony of the Gospels. So it's building this harmony here. And then it gives us John the Baptist, witnessing, preeminence of Christ, Christ eternal, fullness of Christ, God's grace, lawgiver, Christ's grace, Christ's truth, God unseen, John the Baptist testimony, oneness with the Father, beloved Son, Christ a witness, Christ's names. Now we could stop here. We don't even have to follow this topic all the way through. We could exposit this text. And we could use this information to help us exposit the text. It's not telling us what to say or what to believe or anything like that, but it's giving us information that we can use any of this to go into any of the other topics. We can use any of this to bring out other references to help us expand on our points. So let's go to the next one for Christ's grace. And notice it's still 1446. We're still in the same topic number. It gives us 2 Corinthians 8:9. So if we go to 2 Corinthians 8:9, we see that it starts at verse 8 for that paragraph. We can go back as far as we want to go. But if we just go here, we have a parallel passage that we can go look and include if we want to, and see what references it includes, what topics it includes, and what subject headings. We have a subject heading, giving a test of love. We have good example, godly love, Christ's grace, Christ's sacrifice, Christ's humiliation, Christ's humility, and unselfishness. And then we can exposit this text if we wanted to. So we can use all of these tools together to help us exposit the text, help us build a topical sermon, a topical teaching, personal study. There's a lot of information here that we can use. And if we wanted to get even more information, we can go back to the index in the back to 1446, back to Grace Divine. And then we see surrounding topics. We see above it, Grace Divine, 1445, and it gives us more information. It gives us more verses. It breaks it down into even more, and it's only scripture. So we can allow scripture to interpret scripture. And then back to 1446, Grace Divine, in the margin, Christ's grace. And then it gives us all of our references. And then at the end of this list, up here at the top, it gives us Christ's love. So there's a suggested topic that we can include. And then there's even more topics. We have Grace Divine again, topic number 3. We have Grace Divine again, topic number 4. So we can include just these references. And just because it's here doesn't mean we need to include it. We have to make that decision ourselves, of course. But we can also go above that, and we can go below that, and we can include any of this that we need to. But what the Thompson is doing is not telling us what to say about a topic. It's not breaking the topics apart from each other, causing us to only focus on a topical study or only focus on a topical sermon. It's giving us tools that we can exegete a text. It's giving us tools that we can follow a topic if we want to, but we can combine the two. I do that a lot myself. I do a lot of blending of topical and exegetical sermons. But that's one way that we can use the Thompson in sermon prep and in class prep and in personal study. I'll just keep that one really short. Are there any questions about this one?
We do have a couple of questions. Nothing yet specific to what you just talked about, but first one is how do I get a copy in Ghana? For international shipping, your best bet is probably christianbook.com or Amazon or Barnes & Noble. You can buy them on any of those. Randy, do you have any other good suggestions for?
I think you've covered it.
Yeah, I think those are probably your best bets. You can get those at all 3 sites. You can order online. Here's a good one for you to geek out to, Randy.
Okay.
Why is the TCR better than an electronic computer search?
Because electronic computer search can be difficult. It depends on how it's made. Let me back up just a little bit. For one thing, it's a matter of paper versus electronic. And paper is, for some people, easier to thumb through, easier to use. They just like the texture and the feel, and they like the process of using it. And the Thompson is easy to use. But when you're looking at software doesn't necessarily know a topic. You might look up a word, and it'll give you every reference in that includes that word, but they might not be related. And you might not have verses that are related, but they don't include that word. So you don't get verses that you need. So the Thompson works in that way so that you have all the related references that you need for a specific topic. Now, if you have software with Thompson, I recommend using that. If it's made well, if it's made to a degree where you're not having to navigate difficultly, is that a word, difficultly? If navigation is easy, I do like software, the Thompsons in software. But now I had an older version of the Thompson on software that's not available anymore. The software is, but the old version has been updated to a new version. The old version was difficult to use. And it's not just a matter of just clicking something, because you still had that back and forth. And it's the Thompson in print is easy to go back and forth. And it's just easier to just flip back and go where you need to go. But if the navigation works, then software is great. And I do recommend it.
All right. I don't see any other questions just yet, but I'm going to give everybody a second to hop on here and see if there's anything else. Randy, did you have anything else you think we should touch on here?
Well, one question I get asked a lot is when the ESV is going to be printed, but you already mentioned that. Let's see what else. Oh, I know what's next after the New King James. You mentioned the New King James, but what's after that?
Well, I can't tell you what's after that yet, but I can tell you that I was in the very first planning meeting for it today. Wow. So nice. Yeah, so KJV is at the printer. They're up for pre-order right now on a lot of sites. So those out there, and again, those go on sale in November. And then the NKJV is our editing and layout teams are working on that one right now. So, and that one goes on sale next May. We just announced that one, and I just saw today it's starting to trickle out onto retailer sites. I found a couple of them on Amazon. So the NKJVs will be out there before too long for pre-order on some sites, and you'll be able to see the full lineup. One of the easiest ways to see all of the upcoming editions, we have an Amazon store that I maintain, and it's amazon.com/Thompson Chain-Reference Bible. So they're all on there, and then you can also go to our website, which is thompsonchain-referencebible.com, and that has all of the NIV and KJV versions are up on both of those sites already, and the NKJVs I'll be adding probably over the next couple of weeks. So you'll be able to see the whole all the different covers and options and stuff. Sandra is asking, when the NKJV premiere comes, will it have a different color scheme to the NIV, such as red under gold art gilt with perhaps red ribbons, brown goat skin? So it is a black goat skin. All of the premiere collections so far have been black goat skins. I've had a couple questions about brown. We don't have any brown in the works just yet, but I would keep your eye out for any line extensions that will come over the next few years. The color scheme, yes, it is different. I don't remember what it is exactly. I do think it's red under gold, but don't quote me on that. But it is different. It's not the blue of the NIV. And if you take a look at one of our sites over the next few weeks, we will get some images of those up before too long.
I had another question. You mentioned about the group, the Thompson Chain-Reference group, but you actually have several other resources where people can learn about the Thompson. Can you tell about those?
Yes. So thompsonchain-referencebible.com is our site. And that's got some of our video resources. It's kind of, there's a visual walkthrough kind of some of the examples that Randy showed today. And also great resource on there is our Thompson Chain blog, which Randy is a major contributor to. So lots of good content there. And then we also get content occasionally from our editor, Mike, who's been working on all of these editions and heading up this whole project from the editorial side. And he's had some great articles about how the updates were done and what was done, and the print quality and all kinds of nerdy stuff that that's fun to read about.
That was a good article.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that one.
And Randy also did some video tutorials for us that you can find on YouTube. If you have any of the emails that you got about this webinar, they're all linked from those emails too, where it says watch our video series. It's all of Randy's videos. So a lot of great content out there. If you are in this session, you will be getting our new blog posts via email when they come out, and that's about twice a month too, so you can watch your inbox for those. Someone loves the Premier collections. Thank you. They are beautiful.
They are.
Jeff says, when you print the NASB version or any upcoming version, will they all be in the comfort print text? Yes. Each translation that we have the rights to has its own comfort print text. So there's an NIV, a KJV, an NKJV, and a NASB. They each have their own slightly different comfort print version. So all of those will be in comfort print. If there is an updated ESV, which we have not announced yet, but a future ESV version will have all of the design elements updated, but we do not have a comfort print font for ESV because it's not a translation that we own the publishing rights to. We have to get that licensed. So it will be updated and it will have a new font compared to the old versions, but it's not comfort print specifically. And then Keen says, I see the TCR and ESV on christianbook.com. So that is the edition that came out last year. It is the previous edition that was published by Kirkbride. So it's the same content as the last ESV that Kirkbride published. So like I said, a new edition has not been announced yet, but stay tuned for news on that. And then Kelvin is asking about an NRSV TCR. You are not the first to ask. You probably won't be the last. We do not have an NRSV in the pipeline just yet, but I know that we are aware that some people have asked for it. So I can't confirm or deny, but never say never.
Are there other translations that you could consider?
I mean, I can't say anything officially, but I think as far as translations go, anything is possible.
Yes.
I know that, like I said, I know we have a next translation that we've not announced yet in the works. We have a couple others we're looking at. I know NRSV has been asked for. I have not heard anything yet on whether that's something that we're moving forward with, but anything's possible.
Excellent.
Current translations have red letter or black letter. All of the editions from last year are red letter. All of the new editions will be red letter, except the Premier collection is black letter. That is the only edition so far that is black letter. But again, I know we've had a lot of requests for black letter. So I wouldn't say that never say never in the future, but I don't have anything official. Will the various cover styles, spine designs, colors be exactly the same for each new version coming to market? No. Each translation will have the same lineup as far as materials. So each translation will have bonded leather, leather soft, a couple of genuine leather, and the Premier collection. All of the Premier collections so far will be black. But the others, I believe all of the bonded leathers are black as well. But the leather softs and the genuine leathers, vary in color a little bit from translation to translation, and the cover and spine designs vary a little bit from translation to translation as well. How does Zondervan consider which translations are on the roadmap? What can I say?
That's a good question. I like that question.
So I can say the NIV was the first translation we wanted to do because the NIV was completely out of print. Kirkbride had never acquired the rights to publish the 2011 NIV, and the 1984 NIV is no longer allowed to be published. So there weren't any NIVs in the market. So that was the first one that we wanted to do. And then after that, it was just kind of looking at which translations had previously been done that we wanted to get updated, like the KJV, the NKJV. So that is kind of the first consideration. And then I don't know specifically what will be the consideration for future translations if we decide to go outside what Kirkbride had previously published. So I know we've had some questions from people about translations being available, but yeah, there's nothing official yet on any of those. Keen, so the NIV edition is already for sale. Those released the first week of June 7th, I believe. So you can get your hands on an NIV right now. And then KJV is up for pre-order a lot of places, and NKJV will be up for pre-order very, very soon. So we've already answered. Do the updates show pronunciation of biblical names? I'm going to toss that one to you, Randy.
I don't think so.
So
let me confirm though. I've got a Thompson right here that I can use. This one's famous. That's a famous Thompson right there. That was in some videos, and that was done in Michigan. But now there's no pronunciation in the text itself. And I don't think there's any in the back.
I don't think so.
Let me confirm though. I like to do the Gimba and go to the source and see what it says. But I don't believe so. That is a good question though, because that is a practice, especially in the KJV. That was a practice where if it's not in the text, it was often done in the material in the back. But I've not noticed anything. No, there's not any.
Well, while you're looking, Randy, Sandra wants to know what's the one that you have in your hand. And I believe that is large print.
That is the large print.
Leather soft.
Yeah, I love this Bible. That is a good one. As you can tell, I need the glasses now. So yeah, the large print is really good. I picked on Emily for this because when we met in Michigan to do the video series that she was telling about, she had this one laying there for me to use. And I said, that's a small one. And she goes, no, that's the large. And I made it look. She had to confirm, and okay, it's the large. All right, it's the large. But yeah, this is the large print. I don't know if it'll show well here, but it is the large print, and it's a nice one. I like it. It's easy to read. For the older eyes,
I really like that navy leather soft.
I do too. I do. I really do. It's
really sharp.
It looks great. And for the older eyes, the material in the sides, in the margins, and in the back can still be a little bit small. Even though the text itself is larger by 1.5 points in that range, the text, all the text for the tools, they're darker, they're sharper, and the paper is more opaque, but it can still be a little bit small for older eyes. So I recommend the large print. If you at all need large print, then yeah, that's a good one right there. Pretty. But no, it does not include the self-pronouncing text.
Yeah, for I'm trying to think. For the KJV, I'm almost positive that there are images, actual photos of the exteriors of all the KJVs up on Amazon at least. So you can see the covers and the spines on those. I don't think the NKJV images are up yet, but I do know that we got some blank copies in to take pictures of. So those should be up before too long that you can see. Does the TCR come in French? I have not seen one except Spanish. Not currently. I do believe that it was available in French at some point from Kirkbride, but it is not in print right now. There are several Spanish editions in print, and I know that there are some new Spanish editions coming. I've not seen them yet, but they are on their way. But I have not heard anything yet about additional languages beyond that. Okay, we are kind of way over our time here, so I'm going to do one last question, and then we, I think, are going to sign off here. So our last question is, will any of these TCRs come in lay flat loose leaf?
Good one.
The answer to that is right now, no.
I want that though.
I know we have we've heard a lot from people who have had different configurations and editions of the TCR over the years from Kirkbride. So we don't have anything in the works right now for different things like that. But again, never say never. You never know. And I want
to say, I'm impressed with the quality of questions that we've gotten. We've had some stumpers and we've had some good ones. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate everyone coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have one more quick question that I can answer quickly here. Can I get the TCR NIV on Amazon in the UK? Yes, you should be able to. That's it. Yes. So yeah, thanks everybody so much for coming out and asking us lots of good questions and learning some more about Thompson Chain. So I will, you should get an email tomorrow with a link to the recording, so you can share that. And if you don't get it tomorrow, it's because I had some sort of technical difficulty, and hopefully it'll come the next day. But yeah, check out our blog, check out our website at thompsonchainreferencebible.com. Check out the blog there, lots of good videos and content to watch. And if you join the Facebook group, you'll be the first to know about upcoming translations and news, and see all the new editions and fun stuff too. So thanks so much, Randy, for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and have a great night or afternoon or morning or wherever you happen to be in the world.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.